Question: what do Earth Day and Vladimir Lenin's birthday have in common? Answer: they both reoccur every year on April 22nd. Coincidence? How about this? The first Earth Day took place April 22nd, 1970. The centennial of Lenin's birth took place April 22nd, 1970. Needless to say, the Lenin centenary was a huge deal to the communist movement, which goes bonkers over dates and memorials to its icons. Here are more striking similarities. Vladimir Lenin and the communist and environmental movements all remonstrated against capitalism, profits, corporations, industry, free markets, the West. Here's another. When the communist movement imploded in the late 1980s, many of its disciples just happened to join you guessed it, the environmental movement. Let's back up and start from the beginning. Vladimir Lenin, a hateful man, was born April 22, 1870, precisely 100 years before the first Earth Day. The number 100 is auspicious for the communist movement. It reflects the number of human beings exterminated by the Marxist-Leninist ideology over the last 100 years. According to the seminal Harvard University Press work, The Black Book of Communism, communist governments killed over 100 million in the last century. This, incidentally, is a conservative figure. The total number of dead is probably closer to 140 million, more than double the combined deaths of World War I and II. Our more knowledgeable friends on the left will cry foul at my crass connection between Lenin Day and Earth Day. They might note that Lenin was not an environmentalist. True, Lenin was a collectivist. He was also an angry atheist who detested human beings, mowing them down, filling landfills with them. He did, however, share the penchant for central planning championed by environmentalists. And like environmentalists, more people were a problem for Lenin and his minions. Both environmentalists and Leninists view people as a drain on resources. For environmentalists, too many people consume too much of the Earth's alleged limited resources. For Leninists, too many people consume too much of the state's limited resources. Both see mass collectivism and redistributionism, not to mention government control and seizure of property, as solutions to perceived global problems. But to my main point, was it a coincidence that the first Earth Day occurred on Lenin's 100th birthday? To be sure, conventional history tells us that the initial Earth Day had unsuspicious roots. One of its founders was Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson, a Democrat and an environmentalist. He is typically credited as the initiator of Earth Day. By the time of the first Earth Day, country club Republicans, like New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller, celebrated by launching environmental departments in their states, i.e., cumbersome regulatory agencies that communists would come to admire. But was there more to it? Was the communist movement involved? For the record, this was a question that didn't escape notice in 1970, from the eye of the FBI to Time magazine and the New York Times. The two obvious parallel dates raised eyebrows. The timepiece covering that first Earth Day, published in the May 4, 1970 edition, shows how our mainstream press was once more level-headed. Time wrote of the event, it had aspects of a secular, almost pagan holiday, a sense of propitiating an earth increasingly incapable of forgiving what man has inflicted upon it. Can you imagine that kind of leaden time today? Unfortunately, the 60s radicals who populated the first Earth Day now run such publications. Time noted that 100,000 marched to New York alone for the first Earth Day. Notably, New York was where the communist presence was strongest. Both Communist Party USA and the Daily Worker were headquartered in New York, not to mention numerous communist front groups. The Vietnam War was in full swing, and so were the war protesters, many of them peace-loving liberals who were easily duped by pro-Viet Cong communist ringleaders like Mark Rudd, Tom Hayden, Bill Ayers, and Bernardine Dohrn, to name just a few, who today are professors and literal progressives for Obama. Seriously, look it up.